DraftScience video. Alright, another one where I'm just going to sort of ramble on a few subjects probably, and try to get to something important, just because there's different things on my mind. Mainly the fact that there's just no way to challenge the authority, the acrocashitacy. Yeah, these people. With some questions, fill in the blanks here. Explain why this doesn't happen and why that doesn't exist and why you don't have evidence of this and why this doesn't work all the time and why blah blah blah. And you can't really do that. And you also can't propose experiments that you don't have the ability to do, but they certainly do. I was thinking of the double slit experiment, and I was thinking they probably have a laser now that's really, really small, little pinpoint lasers. And they could probably shine a laser through one slit or another slit, completely, without it bleeding or anything. So they could probably just outline the edges of the slits and do the two-slit experiment that way and demonstrate that they can know exactly what slit the light went through, and they'll still get the same interference pattern, and it'll basically prove that it's not an interference pattern. That's a refraction pattern. As is pointed out by single slit diffraction, as long as you avoid Huygens nonsense that every photon is creating a million waves in front of it kind of bullshit. I mean, they just come up with a new piece of bullshit to keep gluing this crap they have together. And again, it's all fixed. You just come up with, you just create a field of energetic kinetic quanta, and all of it is explained, everything. So let's go through it. Gravity's explained, obviously. Acceleration is explained as acquiring, directional information. You're not acquiring mass, you're acquiring the identity of the energy field. So the field goes through you, you absorb some of it, and less of that particular kind of direction leaves you. Some other kind leaves, but not that kind, because you absorbed it. So now you own those arrows, and that means the field is now less of those arrows. So if you just think of all these little squares as just being a directional vector, you can understand that a random field, like say if I just took an arc right here, you can understand that some percentage of that arc is going to point right at that sun. And it's going to be true of every arc in space around this sun. Some percentage is always going to be pointed, and it's going to be heading for the sun. That's the pressure that's around every single atomic bit, every quanta essentially. Every square here is basically the target of some vectors that will inevitably encounter it. And that's the pressure of the field. And anything you take from the field, if I gain velocity, it means I've taken some directionality out of the field. And it means the field now has the opposite direction. That's the equal but opposites. It explains everything. Conservation, everything is maintained here. So this idea that, the acceleration of the Earth, let's say, into the sun, right? So if the Earth is being accelerated into the sun, it's absorbing arrows this way. It's not letting them get to the sun. And by not letting them get to the sun, pieces of the sun are now moving towards the Earth. And that means the stuff back here is getting absorbed. And so those arrows don't make it to the Earth. And that's what I mean by induction. Gravity is induced. Something doesn't really have it. I mean, as much as that sounds wrong, but I mean, there's no realization of gravity until you accelerate one of the bodies involved in the interaction. And then it induces, like electricity and magnetism. So again, there's another unification principle. Tying this all together. Alright, so now and then this explains velocity. Velocity, so first acceleration is where you acquire a change in your directional disposition, the number of positions inside your atomic structure, more of the arrows are pointing in a direction. That's when you're acquiring that identity, and velocity is merely having that identity. Once you have the arrows, something has to take them away from you. Another counter force has to inject other arrows to say, no, we're going somewhere else. And has to change your arrow disposition. And again, what happens to the change? It goes into the field. So now the field, if you're positive, the field's going to be automatically negative in a sense. It's going to be the opposite of what you are. If you're going this way, the field's going to have in it a tendency to go that way, which means anything else in the field is going to be affected by that stuff you took from the field. I mean, it's just so frickin' obvious. So it explains inertia, something that's been boggling mankind for its entire existence. It is there. It's explained. Inertia is possession of a velocity identity, possession of directional information pointing in a direction. You have bits inside of you, BBs, and those BBs predominantly are pointing in one direction, and then you move in that direction. Not predominantly, but there's an imbalance. You have more going the way you're going than you have going the opposite way. Therefore, you go. I mean, so simple. Then, I've already done the magnetism thing. Explains that. Explains time dilation, for fuck's sake. It explains why muons, last longer as they gain acceleration in the atmosphere. They last longer, decay slower, because they can't sing and dance and move stage left at the same time without slowing everything down, without singing slower, without dancing slower. Nothing can do anything in here. It can't do two things at once. The Earth cannot have velocity this way and this way at the same time. The little bits can't do that. They can't do that kind of math. So what do? Well, they go one way and then they go the other way, but they don't go both ways. The same is true of your atomic metabolism. Your little bits inside of you can't do exactly, your clock can't run the same speed if you're now saying do that and also go that way. So that means some percentage of the time your arrows have to be pointed that way. They can't be doing a circle, or they can't be doing anything else. They have to spend some portion of their time going that way. That means their identity has to be that for some period of time. It's like me saying to you, be a person, and then I'm going to say, oh, but wait a minute, I'm going to take 10% of the time and freeze you. Well, obviously, everything you do now is going to be slower. Duh. So look, really, it's got everything tied together. Electricity, charge, it all fits. So yeah, this is slam dunk all over the place. So anyway, this. So at least this drawing is a little better than a traditional one, but it's also, look, it's got all kinds of waves in it. It's got a loop over here. It's got a loop in here. The problem is artists aren't physicists, and they aren't, I guess the physicists can't say to the artist, no, do that, except make this all even. Yeah, don't have these loops and bends in this, because that's screwing the whole thing up. I don't know, they can't say that. And then put this down, make an indication that it's down here, because that's where it really is, okay, for this to work at all. It's down there. Alright, so anyway, this is the, I just hate this green guy. What convinced physicists that general relativity was correct? And so they're going back to the stupid lensing experiment. So I mean, one of the obvious things I have as a problem with is the idea is that this phenomenon existed, but you could only see it when the moon does the little eclipsey thing here. Well, it's way back here. So the moon eclipses the sun, and so therefore you can see the stars that are behind the sun, or some point behind the sun, somewhere in the cone of sun relevant, right? And they're saying by Einstein's theory, light would be gravitationally bent by this space. So if you had enough bending in the space, right, the light would actually get bent. Now, I would argue that, well, that creates all kinds of problems. There's just absolutely no evidence that light's affected by gravity, and I'm going to argue that light is gravity. It's just gravity with a frequency. So obviously that wouldn't work. Gravity affecting gravity. No. But anyway, so the question you have to ask though is then, okay, well if that's true, you know, that this actually did happen, I would first ask, well, okay, now we have telescopes in space. So the real problem is, okay, they need the moon to block out the light from the sun because they couldn't mask it on their telescopes. You know, they couldn't put a little black dot in front of the telescope, you know, to block out the sun, because the problem was the atmosphere is diffracting. Ironically, the atmosphere is diffracting, you know, a whole bunch of light. You know, not gravitationally diffracting it, but anyway, and all that excess light still gets in the telescope, so you can't use a telescope when the sun's out. Sounds logical, right? Because of the atmospheric problem. But now, once you put the telescope in space, you got rid of the atmospheric problems, and now you don't have a glowing atmosphere anymore. You don't have all this diffraction from all these particulates in the atmosphere that are deflecting the light. So now you can just put a little black thing in the middle of the lens and block the sun out by yourself, right? So they should be able to verify this thing without going back to this experiment that was, you know, even the people who argue for this proof, as they call it, they even admit that it was kind of rigged, okay? I mean, they really wanted to find Einstein's, they really were trying to validate Einstein, and they spent a couple of years fiddling with the feckin' math to make the thing happen. So, you know, I don't like that picture. I don't like, no, yeah, that one. Let's keep that one. You know, that kind of crap was going on. But anyway, beside the point entirely. I'm just arguing that why keep going back to the 100-year-old experiment when you should have a nice Hubble telescope image of that, and you should be able to get it like every half a year, right? Because the idea is you can see when the Earth is on this side, you can see this star and you know exactly where it is, and then when you spin around this side, all of a sudden this star is going to get all funky in its location because the bending of the space and blah blah blah. So why don't you show me the Hubble images that verify that? And I'm not saying this doesn't happen. I'm not saying there isn't diffraction on the surface of the sun, but it's diffraction through a complex chemistry that exists miles outside of the sun's, you know, the sun produces a huge field, a huge mass of, let's call it, of energetic particles, not just light, not just radiation. It spews atomic bits, and those atomic bits are what the light's interacting with. They're called electrons. That's what light interacts with, electrons. It loves electrons. It loves playing with electrons. And it's electrons that bend light. But anyway, all right, so let's, so here's a thought experiment, or a real experiment. This they should be able to calculate, right? So you have these gigantic flames that come off the sun, right? I mean, they're really huge. They go way the fuck out here. All right, now theoretically, the light off of those flames, okay, the flames are producing the light, and it's coming at us at the right angle. So if you just have a perpendicular flame coming off the sun, that means that half of this bend it has to go through. It has to go through this bent space. So the light coming off that flame has to go through all of this bent space. And clearly, the light at the bottom of the flame and the light at the top of the flame are going to be in very different gravities. The gravity at the tip of the flame is going to be weaker than the gravity at the base of the flame. So the base of the flame is going to have to go up through a much heavier dilation than the tip of the flame. Because gravity, the inverse square, gravity dissipates rather rapidly. So why don't we have evidence of that? Why don't we have evidence of gravitational lensing in the light that's coming off of flames from the sun? I mean, we should have a distortion, tremendous distortion in our photographs of those flame events, because the light should be getting diffracted. I mean, theoretically, correct? I mean, I would argue it is getting diffracted, but it's not getting gravitationally lensed. So I'm just arguing, where's the evidence of gravitational lensing, that the light is getting to us slower because it's bending? So the other argument would be, is the light produced by the sun itself has to climb out of this huge gravity well. Presumably, I mean, this gravity well is strong enough to bend light. Well, why isn't it strong enough to retard the progress of light out of the well? Why doesn't it slow the light down? So it would slow the Earth down. If the Earth was trying to climb out of there, it would slow the Earth down. And we can understand the Earth would get pushed in by gravity. So they're saying that light is sort of like a gravitational body in that it could be moved in its trajectory by gravity, yet it can't be slowed down in its acceleration by gravity. Seems a double standard. Alright, well, those are enough critiques of that, I think. Yeah, okay, so the other part of my point would be is that, okay, so the gravity here on the sun is, so on Earth it's 22 miles an hour. So you gain 22 miles an hour in velocity per second if you're allowed to free fall in a non-atmosphere. In an atmosphere, you're going to get slowed down by the friction of the air. But without the atmosphere, 22 miles an hour per second will be your rate of acceleration. On the sun, it's 612 miles an hour. A lot, but not, not that much. It's a lot, but it's not that much, right? So technically, all I have to do is go 2 solar diameters away, 5 radiuses. 5 radiuses away, and the gravity in this space, just 5 radiuses of the sun away. Just 5, like I said, this image is way off. I mean, the Earth is zillions of miles away. But anyway, I mean, not zillions, but millions, literally. But just a matter of 5 radiuses, and I've already got gravity that's the same as on Earth. That's how much it's been weakened. So it goes from 612 miles an hour, you'll gain acceleration here, to 22 here. So that rapidly is how rapid gravity degrades. And we're supposed to believe now that we have, looking into the universe, we have all this dark gravity. We have all these dark objects, black holes, that are supposed to be creating million sun masses, right? They're supposed to have like 1 million sun masses. That's how big they're supposed to be. And I'm supposed to believe, where this 1 million times 600, right? So you're talking about a field of, so all I needed to bend light, okay, my argument is light got bent by merely 600. And we know that it's not right on the edge, so it's more like 500 because it's getting bent, and it has to be far enough away from the sun to avoid the flares and such. Or we wouldn't be able to see it. Correct or no? Yes, correct. So I'm supposed to believe that we have all these galaxies, all these things with big giant black holes associated with them, big giant elements of mass associated with them. Where's the lensing? Why aren't they all lensing the fuck out of the stuff behind them? Why don't we see lensing everywhere? Because hell, most of the universe out there is creating a lot more gravity. There's spaces in the universe, let's just say. There's a lot of spaces in the universe, I mean big areas of space, where the gravity is more than 612 miles an hour. Lots of spaces. Very wide spaces. So where's the lensing? Why don't I see entire, whole projected universes being projected through those? And you don't. They have to go look for lensing. They have to go look really hard for lensing. So where's Einstein's theory then? If it only takes 612 miles an hour of gravitational acceleration, that's all it takes to create lensing, why isn't it all over the place in the universe when we look at it? Obviously I'm not going to get an answer, but my argument would be is because lensing only happens around suns, objects projecting a field of energetic particles, electrons. Electrons deflect light. You have to spew a bunch of them into an atmosphere to diffract light. that's what's happening here. Alright, so a little simple illustration, I suppose. Alright, so the gravity thing, the gravity well thing, this is, I just drew this just as an illustration that you just throw these, just these 3 radiuses away, and you start, it starts getting quite de minimis. 1/25th of the gravity by the time you get here. 1/25th of the gravity here. So when they draw these wells, the object is here. Obviously the gravity spikes way back. It spikes back to neutral inside the object. But I'm just saying that they just should draw it to the size of the object, the well. The object should be in the well, theoretically. And, but this is the correct slope. So I was thinking of another way of drawing it to understand the force dynamic. And I was thought of this. So you could just understand that the gravity is this, the idea of getting hit by something this size. So all these things are, say, moving the same speed at you, and you're getting hit by something that size as a representation of the gravity. So the gravity here would be the 612, and then by the time it gets here, it's down to 120, and by the time it gets here, it's down to 50, and then when it gets here, it's 22, and then by the time it gets here, it's only 6. So it's the weight of the ball, the wrecking ball hitting you kind of idea of the force. But you can just see, that just the size, you don't go very far away, and the gravity's disappearing in terms of what we would consider strong gravity. But obviously it doesn't take much of a tilt in the table. Like I said, the further you go out, the more exposure you'll have to the gravity. See, if you come in here close, you're only going to be exposed to the gravity for a very short distance. So you have, it's a completely different dynamic than when you're out here. So, yeah, so velocity becomes a different kind of equation, because you're traveling so much more distance out here that velocity is negated as something that's going to allow you to escape. You're getting hit by a lot of little things. Like when you go in here, you just get hit by one of these. When you're out here, you get hit by a million of these little tiny ones. So gravity still has significance at great distances. But the point is, to be captured, you still have to be going, to not be captured, you still have to be going very fast to get through here without being captured. What else? Am I doing any other subject besides gravity? I don't think so. Yeah, so anyway, it's just, I guess I have to still get back to the math part. And like I said, I'm not really disagreeing with any function of Einstein's convergence. Like Einstein's basically drawing a convergence, right? But he's doing it upside down, because what really is absent here, there's an absence of force here, not a presence of it. That's what makes gravity happen, is that the force is absent in between these two objects, and the force in the universe existing is what's pushing them together. The energy is in the universe. Mass can hold energy. Well, I've said this already before. Mass is like a battery. It stores energy. But kinetic energy exists in the universe already. It's full of it. There's much more energy in the empty space, what you think of as empty space, than there is in the matter. The universe is the universe is energy. It's just energy and nothing. But most of the energy isn't in the form of matter. It's in the form of gravity. Well, there you go. That sort of says it. And matter is just gravity condensed. I mean, that's all this is a condense. When you condense this field, you could sort of understand that. See, the way this is opposite. You see how these squares get bigger here? That's sort of a distortion in the wrong way. It's like upside down. Because what really they should be trying to point out is that they get tighter here. The matter tightens the grid work which means it spreads this out. This is for every compression, there's a recession. That's the equal but opposite reaction. So the more gravity, the more of this quanta that gets caught in matter, the less of it there is out here to create gravity, ironically. It becomes wider and wider spaced. This is the expansion of space, if you will. So it's like this drawing is the opposite of the real circumstance, which is this is a tightening of, and you can sort of understand, like say if I had 10 things and I put them out here and then I brought them into here, those 10 things would fill this whole circumference, where out here there's huge spaces between the 10 things, right? But if I bring the 10 things in here, there's no spaces in between them. That's sort of in my opinion, the way it should be understood is that gravity is consolidating a very big small force out in a very far field, and as that all moves, like I said, everything, there's a ring right around the sun, and and there's a probability, 1 in 3 million or whatever it is, of these things will be pointed directly at the sun, But there's so many of these things that this adds up to a whole lot of little things, and as they get closer and closer and closer, they get closer and closer and closer to each other. And by the time they get here, they're right next to each other, so to speak. And that's how gravity gets stronger. Duh. By this inverse square. By the exact rules. This space gets narrower, 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 narrower by the inverse square. Half the distance, 4 times the force. Alright. Yes, that's enough. But I just, so, I get these comments. I'll read one. Find one. On my regular YouTube video anyway, there was one. And it's just the same old crap. I mean, there's no counter argument. There's just this crap that I'm somehow supposed to, that this redefinition of cause, like Einstein, Einstein didn't really have any proof. And then they established these proofs afterwards. But again, there's alternative explanations. Just that the two-slit experiment does not prove Copenhagen, the idea that photons go through both slits, certainly doesn't prove multiverses, the many worlds interpretation. There's no proof of any of this stuff. These are interpretations. And I can make predictions. I can predict that gravity runs out at the end of the universe. I can predict that the universe is at least twice as old as we think it is, because the stuff that is 15 billion light years away took 15 billion light years to get there. Before the light could get back to us, it took 15 billion years for it to get there at least. It wasn't traveling faster than the speed of light. So the universe has to be at least, twice as old as they think. I can argue that I think it'll be proven that redshift is 1/2 of what it appears to be, because they're counting the redshift twice. So the velocity is only half what they think it is, because redshift causes redshift, so to speak. When something has velocity, it's not only dropping quanta less quickly, it's producing them less quickly. Time dilation, not only speed manipulation. There's 2 elements that are causing light to break down with acceleration. That's getting a little more, alright. Actually, the real reason he won't win the Nobel, well, so first he made this, part of me wants to help, but I know there's like 1 billion people liking Mendham out there. Let the chips fall where they lay. Yeah, well, what does that mean? What is your penance going to be when you're proven wrong, you little weaselly troll? Right? You're attempting to ruin somebody's reputation, malign and degrade them based on your superior knowledge, which you don't have. And if I prove you wrong, what's your penance, asshole? How are you going to pay me back, motherfucker? Huh? Do you have a solution to the harm you cause? You know, there's no solution. There's no way to fix it, you jackass. You're a naysaying, nitpicking, petty, small-dicked motherfucker, and you should just goddamn blow your brains out of humiliation and decency alone. Because you don't have anything. All you got is your hate and your pettiness, motherfucker. You don't have anything called an argument. It may be plain, but it'll be worth it. It may be pain, but it'll be worth it. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Well, I hope I can humiliate you actually to death then, okay? When I'm proven right, you're a little weaselly cunt. I hope you're humiliated to death and do the right thing. And then, because you're a useless piece of shit, quite obviously. Quite obviously. I mean, you know, again, if you had some kind of argument, this might be, you might have some reason for this, but there's nothing here. You have not one motherfucking piece of any evidence. Nothing. Absolutely nothing as evidence that I'm wrong. Alright, you'll never get a Nobel Peace Prize. You already bungled that one up by nominating yourself. Well, again, I didn't officially nominate myself, so I didn't violate any rules. There's no rule against predicting you're going to win the Nobel Prize. Einstein predicted he was going to win the Nobel Prize. Did they take it away from him? Did they deny him the prize because he predicted he was going to win? Did that happen, motherfucker? No, it didn't. And I've already said this, I've already explained this, so you're just such a lying cunt to pretend I haven't already explained this to you, you fucking weasel. Game over on that front. Well, is the game really over? Is that the way it really works? Einstein can predict he can win the Nobel Prize, but nobody else is allowed to predict they're going to win a Nobel Prize? Is that how it works, fuckhead? No, I don't even think Nobel is that corrupt. I mean, it's plenty corrupt. It gave fucking Obama a Peace Prize for causing war. I mean, that's pretty fucking corrupt. But it's not so bad that you can't figure out that that would be bogus. Can someone please explain that on a video? Well, how could they explain it? Because they'd be wrong, you dumb fuck. As I've already explained, you really don't understand the difference between formally nominating yourself, which would be kind of bogus, and predicting you're going to win something. If I predict I'm going to win a gold medal in the Olympics, does that mean they're not going to allow me to participate in the Olympics because I predicted I was going to win a gold medal? You fucking cunt. I mean, get more ludicrous. No, don't, please. Well, no, do, and then do the right thing. Yeah, do what ludicrous things should do, because it's as if he doesn't read all comments. Fair enough. Well, I do read plenty of comments. I'm not reading yours anymore, quite obviously. I'm just going to delete the motherfucking cunt comments as soon as I see your motherfucking cunt jaha-ha-fa-fa-fa fucking goddamn name, you fucking Muslim cunt. Go fucking die, weasel. And even though Warbles on a lot explained it to him as well, well, Warbles was wrong too, and he's too big a cunt to admit it. Yeah, so fuck you again. Jeez. Swearing is an expression of being unstable. Well, that's a theory. I wonder how many people think that's a rational or reasonable theory. Oh, sorry. Nobody rational or reasonable. Sorry, but it is, subconsciously. Well, again, who thinks that theory's correct? Oh, that's right, no one. Clean your rooms. No. Why should I? Why don't you put your life on video, and then I'll find some piece of it to critique, like your small penis or your fucking ugly motherfucking gobby face. I'll say something like, you know, why don't you straighten your eyes, fuckhead? Why don't you get plastic surgery, you ugly cunt? Why don't you take a bath? I could just use that one all day long against you, fuckhead. Alright, so I point out, Albert Einstein spent his Nobel Prize money in a divorce settlement years before he won it. I mean, this is a fact, okay? Einstein wanted out of his marriage. His wife wouldn't give him a divorce, but she had a fucking kid. And so he basically said, look, please, please give me a divorce, and if you give me a divorce, I'll give you my Nobel Prize money. So he basically bribed his wife into a fucking goddamn divorce settlement. You can't send an official nomination for yourself, but there is no rule prohibiting predicting you will win. Yeah, no such rule exists. And now I ask him to go away, you fucking idiot. Which he didn't wish to do, and so I have deleted a couple of his comments. But anyway, so John Sock, I mean, really, this asshole is going to use Dunning-Kruger effect when he picks a name like John Sock. Oxymoronic enough? Anyway, actually, the real reason he won't win the Nobel Prize is because Gary is one of the purest examples of the Dunning-Kruger effect. On YouTube, he is so completely ignorant of actual physics. And what is actual physics, jackass? Copenhagen, many worlds, string theory. What is actual physics, cunt fuck? Do you really think photons are reading our minds and they decide, I'm not going to behave normally because they're watching me? Do you really think that's happening, jackass? Do you think that's actual physics, fuckface? Simple, because he doesn't understand it. I understand that people are full of shit and making claims they can't demonstrate with anything called hard evidence, and that there's plenty of alternative, rational explanations for what they're calling magic. We can't tell where the photon is because it doesn't have an isness. It's not an is. It only decides to be is on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. Then it's is, but otherwise it's not an is. An empty space is telling everything what to do because space knows best. Yes, nothing is telling the something what to do because of course nothing knows what it's doing. Of course the nothing does. That doesn't sound like a religion to you? Does to me, fuckhead. Actually, absolutely no clue. Well, you're demonstrating absolutely no clue. Where's your demonstration that you know what physics is, jackass? Where's your demonstration with one fucking argument, right? Why don't you make a Feynman argument? Why don't you... Feynman tried to say Lagrange gravity or particle gravity couldn't work, and his explanation was as stupid as, well, if you're running in the rain, you can't run away. The rain is going to still hit you. And, I mean, that's how stupid it was. He thought of of a frictionless kinetic universe as the same as running in the rain. He's a physicist, and he used an analogy that really has so little to do with physics. I mean, a chemical analogy, essentially. A buoyancy analogy. Anyway, he doesn't understand it. He has absolutely no clue as to how nonsensical and incompetent his hypothesis is. Well, again, if it's so nonsensical and it's so crazy and it's so loopy and it's so outrageously unsustainable, why don't you just make one motherfucking cunt argument explaining how it's defective, how you have one experiment that I can't explain, that I can't come up with any way of saying, okay, that didn't happen or something. I'm just stuck with the fact of it. Show me the empirical experiments you have. That's right, you don't have any of those. Everything is just some sort of project. Even the fucking Higgs boson, for fuck's sake. You think they have hard evidence of Higgs bosons? I mean, how indirect can you get? It's like finding a placenta in the woods and saying Jesus Christ was born here. Fuck. Untestable. Well, again, Einstein is still pretty much untestable, dumbass. Non-falsifiable. I mean, I can come up with alternative explanations that are just as good for what we observe to be the slowing down of clocks and the slowing down of the metabolism of muons. I mean, I can do that. So, I mean, and their theory is no less non-falsifiable than my theory, jackass. And completely incapable of predicting any phenomenon in the universe. Well, again, I'll predict. If you make a small laser beam and shoot it at the two-slit experiment and just follow random pattern, I mean, at least fill the whole two slits with the same amount of proportional light, I'll predict that you're going to get an interference pattern on the wall without any fucking interference, without any fucking photons going through both slits at once, and breaking Heisenberg because you'll know exactly where the photons went because you fucking aimed them, and you're going to know exactly where they went, and you're going to have exactly the same fucking goddamn cunt result, okay, so Heisenberg can shove it up his fucking goddamn cunt ass. Enough said. I mean, Heisenberg is broken the minute you aim something, okay? So as long as you get rid of this stupid, idiotic idea of let's spray everything with machine guns and then make up physics. No, why don't you aim something and then you'll know what the fuck happened. So I think that's enough. I mean, why don't you put a little black spot on the Hubble telescope? I'm sure it has one. I'm sure it has a little black spot. It just flips. They can flip in, flip out, anytime they want to. Put the little black spotty thing in, and then look at another sun in this fucking goddamn universe and see if you can find some lensing. Yeah, go ahead. Prove it. That it's all over the place, because it ain't. Go to any empty space with 612 miles per hour of gravity and show me. But anyway, so till next time, that's really enough. Fucking assholes. So irritating. So again, what's your penance going to be? Slandering fuckface? Petty weasel fuck? What? How do you make it up to me? Yeah. Huh? I mean, you know, if turns out I'm fucking Galileo, Kepler, Copernicus, all rolled into one, and you tried to catch me on fire, tried to burn me at a stake, yeah, what should be your penalty, fucker?